We toe the line sometimes here at Joblo Horror Originals with what movies we discuss. Some things can qualify for multiple shows, like a Black Sheep or a Deconstructing on the same movie. Sometimes there are enough behind-the-scenes shenanigans to give a proper WTF, or maybe it's adapted from a story. But not today though. Today is something that reflects the true nature of this show. I know some viewers get bummed when they see some movies, even some of their favorite movies, get covered multiple times. So today's hopefully gonna be different. I'm hoping that today will be a best horror movie you never saw for most and a best horror movie you never even heard of for others. Let's take a look at 1987's The Kindred. Now, I don't blame you for not knowing what this movie is. 1987, quite frankly, is a stupidly packed year for horror movies. Hellraiser, Evil Dead 2, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 all are amongst the top tier. But you also have things like Rawhead Rex, Street Trash, House 2, and Dolls. The year runs the gamut of all-time classics down to bad but enjoyable fare, and The Kindred gets just a little lost in that shuffle. The fact that it has 2 directors and 5 writers probably doesn't do it any favors from the outside, nor does its never-heard-of production and distribution team of Kindred Limited Partnership and FM Entertainment respectively. No matter though, what The Kindred lacks in conventional popularity in terms of its production and behind-the-camera crew, it more than makes up for with its sheer craziness and entertainment value. It's like the forgotten little horror movie that could. The movie itself opens with what can only be described as a yuppie who gets himself in a massive car accident while a sinister onlooker watches him get loaded into an ambulance. The paramedics are attacked by a car, and we find out that one of the drivers is in on the taking of bodies and allows himself to get beat up as to curb suspicion. This is one of the few plot lines that really doesn't go anywhere, but I suppose that's what you get when you have 5 credited screenwriters and 2 directors calling the shots. The writers are Stephen Carpenter, Jeffrey Obrow, John Penny, Earl Ghaffari, and Joseph Stefano. If that doesn't exactly sound like a murderous row of talent, it's because it's not. Carpenter wrote and directed The Dorm That Dripped Blood, which is admittedly a minor classic, but not a whole heck of a lot else. Obrow is actually Carpenter's partner and helped write and direct The Dorm That Dripped Blood, as well as today's film, and finally, The Power, also with Carpenter. The other 3 writers have varying degrees of success here. Penny wrote the screenplay for Return of the Living Dead 3, Ghaffari only wrote this, but has been a musical editor on some of Disney's biggest hits of the 21st century, and Stefano, well, he wrote the screenplay for the original Psycho. Behind-the-scene information seems to indicate that the co-directors were the main authors while the other men were able to contribute scenes here and there. The movie then jumps to 2 of our central characters with John Hollins and Sharon Raymond, played by David Allen Brooks and Talia Balsam. Brooks has appeared in movies like The Doors and Manhunter, but has also worked extensively on television shows like JAG, ER, and CSI Miami. Balsam is the daughter of classic actor and Oscar winner Martin Balsam, and has a much longer resume. Her horror credits are limited to this movie, the movie Crawl Space, and Tales from the Dark Side, but her career as a whole started on Happy Days in 1977 and is still going strong today. Hollins is a scientist of some kind and gets informed that his mother, who has been ill in the hospital, is awake now and wants to see him. At the hospital, the mother, played by Oscar winner Kim Hunter, instructs her son to go to the house he grew up in and burn everything. This moves the conversation in a sharp direction, and Hollins is just as confused as we are. This is one of the Kindred's strengths, as while the movie may get sort of dumb at certain points, it's hardly predictable. The human villain is also introduced here with Dr. Lloyd, played by yet another Oscar winner in The Eternal Grump, Rod Steiger. Hunter won her Golden Idol for portraying Stella in A Streetcar Named Desire, but would have a hell of a career. She appeared in a few noir movies at the beginning of her career, and may be most remembered for playing Zira in the Planet of the Apes movies. Interestingly enough, she would also act with her co-star's father Martin in the Romero Argento anthology Two Evil Eyes. Jesus, this movie has some real talent attached to it. Of course, Steiger won his Oscar in The Heat of the Night, but could have a half dozen others. He dipped his toe in horror, most notably in the first Amityville movie and American Gothic. Another best horror movie you never saw from the same year as this movie. Dr. Lloyd confronts Amanda Hollins in the hospital after he kills the ambulance driver with some of his failed experiments. They have a more serious history than he let on to John and asks how many of the experiments she had before deciding to kill them. She dies out of sheer spite to Dr. Lloyd rather than give him the answers, and Steiger is great at being menacing. It's not the first time in his career doing this, but here, in this type of movie, this late in his career, it feels like a Christopher Lee or Peter Cushing type performance. At the funeral, we meet Melissa Leftridge, played by Amanda Pays, who tells John how influenced she was by his mother. Pays is probably the most recognizable to this audience for either her role in Leviathan opposed Peter Weller and Ernie Hudson, or her multi-episode run on both the original and current Flash TV series. Hollins, his girlfriend, and a group that includes Leftridge all go to his childhood home to see what the fuss is all about. The whole house has been turned into a makeshift lab, and there's something there waiting for them. The movie shifts between what feels like a creature feature, a slasher, and an eco-mystery throughout its runtime and teases us with the extra bodies to add to the kill count. A half hour in and we have all our main characters and fodder, including Betty from Revenge of the Nerds, and something that works its way into a watermelon before we get our first kill of the night. See, one of the groups decides to take the watermelon to a safe place. Yeah, it's that kind of movie. And a tentacle creature pops out and gets very acquainted with the girl driving the car. It's also here that the movie delivers on arguably its greatest strength. The effects are all practical, and it doesn't skimp on the gore and creature design. The tentacles worm their way into different parts of her body and cause the car to crash, which kills her. The group starts to figure out that Holland's mom was experimenting on something that she called his brother Anthony. More tentacle action follows as the group deciphers the recordings and journal entries, and to the surprise of no one, Leftridge is shown to be working for Lloyd. She brings him one of the earlier versions of Anthony that attacks her in the basement, but he wants more than that. He wants the greatest thing to happen to human evolution. Apparently, the doctors find an element that shouldn't be in their friend's blood that is found in underwater creatures, and Hollins is starting to piece together what exactly his mother was working on. It turns out Mama Hollins spliced some of John's DNA into different creatures to create a hybrid and named it Anthony. After many failed experiments, one of them finally stuck the landing, and as they figure out, Anthony gets pissed and decides they can't leave anymore. He attacks them in the car and through various parts of the house before the movie takes another weird turn into the true motivation for Leftridge. See, she had contracted a disease while handling the same chemical agent that the doctor found in their friend's blood, and after she's attacked by Anthony, she turns into a mer creature hybrid thing and then dies. Yeah, I didn't see that one coming either. They try to escape the house, but Dr. Lloyd has finally shown up to try and wrap up this crazy plot. Steiger was a true professional all the way through his career, and after one of the directors tried to give him some direction, he told them, quote, "An actor is the only person on a film set whose mistakes are photographed." This little pep talk even changed how the two directors worked with actors in future projects. Steiger gets all gooed up as the group is about to electrocute Anthony. Again, a true professional as he stood there and took it instead of having a stand-in receive all the goo. We finally get to see more of Anthony than just a few tentacles, and it's a sight to behold. As he's getting fried, he tries to rip the cords out of himself, and we see an outline of a human part of the creature that was successful. Even with Alpha Anthony dead though, the group finds out that all of the rejects in the basement are awake and angry. They blow up the house, and a surprising number of the human characters are left alive when all is said and done. One more curveball for this unique horror film. The Kindred is great and it fires on all cylinders while being weird enough to hold your attention the entire time. It's got A+ special effects and creature design. It's honestly impressive. And it's got fun performances, including a couple of old Hollywood Oscar winners, and it's never boring. The first DVD and Blu-ray release was from SYNOPSIS in 2021, and not only does this movie look 10 times better than it did on VHS, but it's also been completely restored and even has some great behind-the-scenes extras on the disc. Give the movie a chance through either a blind buy or when it pops up on streaming somewhere, because I promise you, you will not be disappointed. The Kindred isn't talked about enough, and hopefully we gave you a true best horror movie you never saw.